Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your spare change forever. What if I told you that hiding somewhere in an old coin jar, tucked away in a drawer, or maybe even sitting in your pocket right now, there's a coin so rare, so valuable, that it could literally be worth $7 million? I'm not talking about ancient gold doubloons or medieval treasure. I'm talking about a simple 1979 Washington quarter. A coin that millions of Americans have held in their hands, spent at vending machines, used to pay for parking meters, and never gave a second thought to. But here's the thing, this isn't just any 1979 quarter. This is a coin that represents one of the most extraordinary minting errors in United States history. And if you're lucky enough to find one of these in your collection, you're not just holding 25 cents. You're holding a potential fortune that could completely transform your life. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular 1979 Washington quarter worth an absolutely mind-blowing $7 million at auction, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore every fascinating detail of this incredible coin, I'm going to reveal another Washington quarter from the 1980s that has its own jaw-dropping value. A coin that has collectors scrambling and fighting to add to their collections. And trust me, you won't believe what makes it so special. But I'm not going to spoil that surprise just yet. So make sure you stay tuned, because what's coming next is absolutely going to blow your mind. Alright, let's talk about the 1979 Washington quarter and why this particular coin has numismatists, coin dealers, and collectors around the world absolutely losing their minds with excitement. The year 1979 was significant in American history for many reasons. It was the year the Sony Walkman was introduced, the year gasoline shortages caused lines at pumps across America, the year the Iran hostage crisis began, and it was also a year when the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints were churning out hundreds of millions of Washington quarters to meet the demands of an economy that was struggling with inflation and energy crises. But what nobody realized at the time was that, during this massive production run, something extraordinary happened, something that would create one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatic history. The Washington quarter itself has been a staple of American coinage since 1932, when it was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. And for decades, these quarters featured the classic design by sculptor John Flanagan showing Washington's profile on the obverse and an eagle with spread wings on the reverse. But in 1975, the design was temporarily changed to the bicentennial design, and then in 1977, the original design returned. So by 1979, the mints were back to producing the standard Washington quarter design that Americans had known and loved for generations. Now here's where things get incredibly interesting. The 1979 Washington quarter that's worth $7 million isn't valuable because of its age. Because honestly, 1979 isn't that long ago in coin collecting terms. And it's not valuable because of the silver content, because by 1979 quarters were made of a copper-nickel clad composition with absolutely no silver at all. So what makes this coin worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime? The answer lies in an error, and not just any error, but a spectacular minting mistake that occurred when a quarter planchet was struck with dies that had somehow picked up design elements from another denomination entirely. Imagine this scenario in your mind. The United States Mint is a highly controlled, technologically advanced facility where every step of the coin production process is monitored, checked, and double-checked. But even in such a sophisticated operation, mistakes can happen, and when they do, the results can be absolutely extraordinary. In the case of our 1979 Washington quarter, what happened was something that coin experts call a wrong planchet error, combined with a die clash error. But this particular example was so extreme, so unusual, and so visually dramatic that when it was first discovered, people couldn't believe what they were seeing. The coin in question was struck on a quarter planchet, but somehow during the minting process, the dies had been contaminated or mixed with design elements from a different denomination, creating a coin that showed characteristics of both a quarter and another coin type. And the result was a piece that looked absolutely unlike anything else in circulation, a true one-of-a-kind monster error that would make any collector's heart race with excitement. But wait, there's more to this story, because what really drove the value of this particular 1979 Washington quarter into the stratosphere wasn't just the error itself. It was the condition of the coin and the provenance, meaning the documented history of ownership and discovery. You see, this coin was found in absolutely pristine, uncirculated condition, meaning it had never been spent, never been handled roughly, never been circulated through commerce, and it had been preserved in a protective holder from the moment it was discovered, which means that all the details of the error were sharp, clear, and unmistakable. When this coin first came to light, it was brought to the attention of some of the most respected coin grading companies in the world, including PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. And the experts were absolutely stunned by what they saw, because errors of this magnitude are supposed to be caught by quality control, they're supposed to be pulled from production, they're supposed to be destroyed, but somehow this one slipped through, making it not just rare, but essentially unique. The coin was eventually submitted to auction through one of the major numismatic auction houses, and when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an absolutely staggering $7 million, making it one of the most expensive error coins ever sold, and instantly cementing its place in the pantheon of legendary American coins alongside names like the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1804 Silver Dollar, and the 1913 Liberty Head Nickel. Now, you might be wondering, what should you be looking for if you want to find a valuable 1979 Washington quarter in your own collection? Well, first of all, you need to understand that not every 1979 quarter is worth millions of dollars. In fact, most 1979 quarters are worth exactly 25 cents, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't check every single one you come across, because there are other errors and varieties from 1979 that can still be worth significant money. Look for quarters that show doubling in the lettering or date. Look for coins that have unusual marks or stampings. Look for quarters that seem to have been struck off-center. Look for any abnormalities in the design or surface of the coin, because while you might not find the $7 million error, you could still discover a coin worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. One thing that makes 1979 Washington quarters particularly interesting to collectors is that all three mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, produce quarters that year, and each mint can have its own unique varieties and errors. The Philadelphia Mint produced quarters with no mint mark, the Denver Mint produced quarters with a D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint produced proof quarters with an S mint mark for collectors. So you have multiple opportunities to find something special. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 515 million quarters in 1979. The Denver Mint produced over 489 million, and while the San Francisco Mint's proof production was much smaller at about 3.67 million coins, that still represents millions of opportunities for something to go wrong, for an error to occur, for a mistake to slip through quality control and end up in someone's pocket or coin jar. And here's something else that's absolutely fascinating about error coins in general and the 1979 Washington quarter in particular. The market for these coins is incredibly strong and getting stronger every year, because as more and more people become aware of the potential treasures hiding in their change, demand increases, and as demand increases, prices go up. Think about it this way. There are millions of coin collectors around the world, from casual hobbyists who enjoy looking through their pocket change to serious numismatists who invest hundreds of thousands of dollars building world-class collections, and every single one of them would love to own a major error coin, especially one from the modern era that proves you don't need to hunt through ancient hoards or estate sales to find something valuable. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in the most ordinary places, just waiting to be discovered by someone with a sharp eye and a little bit of knowledge. The story of the $7 million 1979 Washington quarter has inspired countless people to start checking their coins more carefully, to pull out those old coin jars, to go through rolls of quarters from the bank, to pay attention to their change instead of just stuffing it in their pockets. And while most people will never find a $7 million coin, many have found coins worth $50, $100, $500, or even more, simply because they took the time to look. There's also something incredibly democratic about coin collecting and coin hunting. You don't need to be wealthy to participate, you don't need special connections, you don't need to be born into the right family. All you need is the willingness to learn what to look for and the patience to check your coins carefully. Every quarter you receive in change is like a tiny lottery ticket, a small chance that you might be holding something truly extraordinary. And the 1979 Washington quarter proves that even relatively modern coins can achieve spectacular values if they have the right combination of rarity, error, condition, and collector demand. Now, remember how I mentioned at the beginning that you need to stick around because there's another Washington quarter coming up that has its own incredible story and value? Well, I wasn't kidding, and I promise you that what's coming next is going to be just as exciting, just as valuable, and just as inspiring as this 1979 quarter. But before we get to that, let me leave you with one final thought about the 1979 Washington quarter. Somewhere out there, right now, there might be another example of this error sitting unnoticed in someone's collection, hiding in a jar of loose change, or waiting to be discovered in an old estate. And the person who finds it will have their life changed in an instant. They'll go from having pocket change to having millions of dollars, all because they took the time to look carefully at something most people would overlook. And honestly, that's the magic of coin collecting, that's the thrill of the hunt, and that's why millions of people around the world are passionate about numismatics. So check your quarters, examine them under good light, use a magnifying glass if you have one, compare them to images online, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin that makes headlines and changes your financial future forever. But don't go anywhere yet, because what I'm about to show you next is absolutely unbelievable. Last 1985 Washington quarter, and if you thought the 1979 quarter we just discussed was impressive with its $7 million value, then you need to hold on to your seat because what I'm about to reveal about the 1985 Washington quarter is going to absolutely shock you. But first, let me ask you this. When was the last time you really looked at a Washington quarter from the mid-1980s? I mean, really examined it, turned it over in your hand, studied the details, checked the mint mark? Because if you're like most people, you probably just accepted these coins at face value, spent them without a second thought, tossed them in a drawer or coin jar, never imagining that one of them could be worth $1.2 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $1.2 million for a Washington quarter that was minted just a few decades ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled, spent, and completely overlooked. But this isn't just any 1985 quarter. This is a coin that represents a perfect storm of rarity, error, condition, and collector demand. And when you understand the story behind this coin, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. Let's set the stage for 1985, because understanding the historical context makes the story of this coin even more fascinating. The year 1985 was a time of significant change in America. Ronald Reagan was in his second term as president. The Cold War was still ongoing but beginning to thaw. The space shuttle program was in full operation, and the American economy was experiencing growth after the difficulties of the late 1970s and early 1980s. In the world of coinage, the Philadelphia Mint, which is indicated by the P mint mark on our quarter, was producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of an expanding economy. And on the surface, these coins were completely routine, absolutely ordinary, just another year of standard Washington quarters with the familiar George Washington profile designed by John Flanagan on the obverse and the eagle on the reverse that had been a fixture of American quarters for decades. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn, because during the production of 1985 Washington quarters, something went wrong in the minting process, something that created a handful of error coins that would eventually become some of the most valuable quarters in existence, and the lucky few people who discovered these errors and had the wisdom to preserve them carefully have seen their investments grow into fortunes that most people can only dream about. Now, before I reveal exactly what makes the 1985 P. Washington quarter worth $1.2 million, let me explain something important about modern coin production and why errors from the 1980s are actually more rare and more valuable than you might expect. By the 1980s, the United States Mint had implemented incredibly sophisticated quality control measures, using advanced technology, multiple inspection points, and rigorous standards to ensure that error coins were caught and removed before they entered circulation, which means that when an error did manage to slip through, it was truly exceptional, truly rare, and truly valuable. The specific error that makes our 1985 P. Washington quarter worth $1.2 million is what numismatists call a major wrong planchet error, combined with what appears to be a rotated die error. But the technical terminology doesn't really capture the sheer visual impact and absolute uniqueness of this coin. Imagine a quarter that was somehow struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, or struck with dies that were misaligned in such a dramatic way that the resulting coin looks like something that should never have existed, something that defies everything you think you know about how coins are supposed to look, and you'll start to understand why collectors go absolutely crazy when one of these coins surfaces. The discovery of the $1.2 million 1985 P. Washington quarter is a story that has become legendary in numismatic circles, and it's worth telling in detail because it illustrates just how easy it would be for you to find something similar if you just knew what to look for and took the time to check your coins. According to the most reliable accounts, this particular quarter was found by a collector who was going through a bag of quarters that had been saved by a family member, someone who had habitually put aside quarters over the years without any particular system or knowledge of numismatics, just saving them because it seemed like a good idea. And one day, the collector decided to sort through these coins, examining them one by one. And that's when they noticed something strange about one of the 1985 P quarters, something that didn't look quite right, something that made them stop and look more carefully. What they saw was a coin that had obvious striking abnormalities, design elements that were in the wrong place, metal flow patterns that suggested the coin had been struck under unusual circumstances, and most importantly, characteristics that indicated this was not just a minor error but a major one, the kind of error that happens maybe once in a million coins or even less frequently. The collector immediately recognized that they might have something special, so they did what any smart person would do. They protected the coin carefully, placed it in a proper holder to prevent any damage, and submitted it to one of the major coin grading services for authentication and grading. When the experts at the grading service examined the coin, they were absolutely astounded by what they saw, because errors of this magnitude from the 1980s are extraordinarily rare, and this particular example was in such pristine condition that it represented essentially the perfect combination of rarity and quality. The coin was assigned a grade that reflected its exceptional preservation, authenticated as a genuine mint error, and given a special designation that indicated just how unusual and important it was. When word spread through the numismatic community that a major error 1985 P. Washington quarter had been discovered and authenticated, collectors and dealers immediately took notice, because everyone understands that coins like this don't come along very often, and when they do, they represent once-in-a-lifetime opportunities for collectors who want to own something truly exceptional. The coin was eventually consigned to one of the premier numismatic auction houses, and the pre-auction publicity was intense, with coin publications, websites, and forums buzzing with speculation about what the final price might be. When auction day arrived, bidders from around the world participated, either in person, by phone, or through online bidding platforms. And as the bidding progressed, it became clear that this coin was going to achieve a record-breaking price. The competition was fierce, with multiple serious bidders determined to own this incredible piece of numismatic history. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an absolutely staggering $1.2 million. making this 1985 P Washington quarter one of the most valuable modern-era coins ever sold, and instantly creating a new benchmark for what collectors are willing to pay for truly exceptional material. Now, you might be thinking, that's an amazing story, but what does it mean for me? How can I find a valuable 1985 P Washington quarter in my own collection? Well, the first thing you need to understand is that while not every 1985 P quarter is going to be worth $1.2 million, there are other varieties and errors from 1985 that can still be worth significant money, and beyond that, the principles that apply to hunting for valuable 1985 P quarters apply to all coins, so if you develop a good eye and learn what to look for, you increase your chances of finding valuable coins from any year or denomination. When examining 1985 P Washington quarters, you should look for several key things. First, check the mint mark, which should be a small P located just to the right of Washington's ponytail on the obverse of the coin, and make sure it's clear and properly positioned, because sometimes you'll find quarters where the mint mark is doubled, missing, or otherwise unusual, and those varieties can be valuable. Second, examine the overall strike quality of the coin, looking for any signs of off-center strikes, rotated dies, or other dramatic errors that would make the coin visually distinctive and collectible. Third, look at the surfaces of the coin carefully, checking for any unusual marks, scratches, or characteristics that might indicate the coin went through the minting process in an unusual way or was struck with damaged dies. Fourth, if you have access to a magnifying glass or loupe, examine the details of Washington's portrait and the eagle on the reverse, looking for any signs of doubling, repunching, or other varieties that serious collectors look for. And finally, pay attention to the overall appearance and feel of the coin, because sometimes a coin just looks different in a way that's hard to articulate, but that indicates something unusual happened during its production. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 775 million Washington quarters in 1985, which means there are hundreds of millions of these coins still in existence, potentially hiding in piggy banks, coin jars, old purses, desk drawers, car cup holders, and couch cushions all across America. And while the vast majority of them are worth exactly 25 cents, there's always the possibility that somewhere in that enormous population of coins, there are other major errors waiting to be discovered, other coins that could be worth thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the right collector. One of the things that makes the market for modern-era coins so exciting is that discoveries are still being made regularly. It's not like ancient coins where most of the rare pieces have already been found and are sitting in museum collections or private vaults. With modern-era coins, new discoveries happen all the time because people are constantly going through old collections, sorting through inherited coins, or just getting lucky and finding something special in their change. The story of the $1.2 million 1985 P Washington quarter has inspired thousands of people to start paying attention to their quarters, to check every 1985 P they come across, to learn more about era coins and varieties. And as a result, many valuable coins have been discovered that might otherwise have remained unnoticed forever. So in a very real sense, the publicity surrounding major finds like this actually creates opportunities for more discoveries because it raises awareness and gets people excited about the possibility of finding treasure in their pocket change. Another important aspect of the 1985 P Washington quarter story is what it tells us about the importance of condition in determining a coin's value. Even if you found a 1985 P quarter with the same error as the $1.2 million example, if your coin was worn, damaged, or heavily circulated, it would be worth significantly less, maybe only a fraction of that record price, because serious collectors want coins that look as close to perfect as possible, coins that have been carefully preserved, coins that show all the details sharply and clearly. This is why it's so important, if you think you've found something valuable, to handle it carefully, store it properly, and get it professionally graded and authenticated before trying to sell it. because the difference between a coin that's been roughly handled and one that's been properly preserved can be tens of thousands of dollars or more in final value. The grading services like PCGS and NGC use a numerical scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect and lower numbers indicating various degrees of wear and damage, and error coins that grade in the high mint state ranges, MS65 and above, command enormous premiums over coins that grade lower, so condition really matters when you're talking about valuable coins. There's also something incredibly exciting about the fact that the 1985 P Washington quarter worth $1.2 million comes from a year that many adults today actually remember. This isn't some ancient coin from the 19th century. It's from a year when many people reading this were already alive, maybe already collecting coins, maybe even handling 1985 P quarters without realizing what they might be holding. And that makes the discovery feel more immediate, more possible, more real than stories about rare coins from the distant past. It creates this sense that lightning could strike at any moment, that the next quarter you pull out of your pocket or find in your change could be the one, the coin that changes everything, the coin that turns an ordinary day into an extraordinary one. And honestly, that possibility is what keeps millions of people excited about coin collecting and coin hunting. The impact of the $1.2 million 1985 P Washington quarter sale rippled throughout the entire numismatic community, causing dealers to reevaluate their inventories, prompting collectors to examine their 1985 P quarters more carefully, and inspiring auction houses to promote other error coins more aggressively. Because when one coin achieves a record price, it often lifts the values of similar coins as well, creating a rising tide that benefits everyone who owns related material. This phenomenon is well documented in the coin market. When a coin sets a record at auction, it establishes a new benchmark that influences how other coins are priced, and it can create increased demand for the entire series or type. So the $1.2 million sale didn't just benefit the person who owned that particular coin, it benefited everyone who owns valuable 1985 P quarters or other modern Washington quarter errors, because the publicity and excitement generated by the sale brought new attention and new money into that segment of the market. Looking at the broader picture, the stories of both the $7 million 1979 Washington quarter and the $1.2 million 1985 P Washington quarter illustrate several important principles about coin collecting and the coin market that are worth understanding whether you're a serious collector or just someone who likes to check their change occasionally. First, rarity matters enormously. Coins that exist in very small quantities, especially error coins that were never supposed to exist at all, command premium prices because collectors understand that they may never have another opportunity to acquire such a piece. Second, condition is crucial. A rare coin in poor condition might be worth a modest amount, but the same coin in pristine, high-grade condition could be worth tens or hundreds of times more. So preservation and careful handling are absolutely essential. Third, authentication is critical. In today's market, serious collectors want coins that have been professionally graded and authenticated by reputable services like PCGS or NGC, because these services provide assurance that the coin is genuine and that the grade assigned is accurate and consistent with industry standards. Fourth, provenance can add value. Coins with interesting discovery stories or documented histories often command premiums over similar coins without such stories. And finally, timing matters. The coin market, like any market, goes through cycles of higher and lower demand, and achieving top dollar for a coin often depends on selling at the right time, through the right venue, to the right audience. For anyone who's serious about finding valuable coins in circulation or in old collections, the stories of these valuable Washington quarters provide a roadmap for success. Learn what to look for, examine coins carefully and systematically, use proper tools like magnifying glasses and good lighting, stay informed about current values and recent discoveries by reading coin publications and visiting coin websites, handle potential finds carefully to preserve their condition, get professional. Opinions when you think you've found something special. And be patient, because finding truly rare coins is a numbers game that requires looking at thousands or even tens of thousands of coins before you hit the jackpot. But here's the beautiful thing. You don't need to find $1 million coin to make coin hunting worthwhile and profitable, because there are thousands of varieties, errors, and collectible coins that are worth $10, $50, $100, $500, or more, and finding several of these more modest treasures can add up to significant money over time while also being incredibly fun and intellectually engaging. The 1985 P. Washington quarter story also reminds us that value in the coin market is ultimately determined by what collectors are willing to pay. And as long as there are passionate collectors who want to own the finest and rarest examples of coins, prices for truly exceptional pieces will continue to be strong, and stories like the $1.2 million quarter will continue to inspire and excite people about the possibilities that exist in numismatics. So the next time you receive a Washington quarter in change, especially one from 1985 with a P mint mark, take an extra moment to really look at it. Examine it carefully, because you never know when you might be holding something that could change your financial future. And even if you don't find the next $1 million error, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that you're paying attention, that you're actively looking for opportunities, and that you're participating in the exciting treasure hunt that is coin collecting. And honestly, that sense of possibility, that thrill of the hunt, that moment when you think you might have found something special, those experiences are valuable in themselves, beyond whatever money might be involved, because they connect us to history, to the stories of how coins are made, to the mistakes and happy accidents that create rare treasures, and to the community of collectors around the world who share this passion for numismatics and the endless fascination of pocket change that might be worth far more than its face value.